The details.
Does the gentleman withdraw?
My motion.
Okay, the motion is withdrawn. It is now in order to consider an amendment number 59 printed in House Report 118 through 142. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I've got an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 59, printed in House Report number 118-142, offered by Mr. Perry of Pennsylvania.
Pursuant to House Resolution 583, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment prohibits the use of research and development, testing and evaluation funding for electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging, and photovoltaic technology in the NDAA. For the past decade, the Department of Defense RDT&E funding has been squandered on wastefully ineffective green technologies at the expense of enhanced readiness and lethality. This misguided push by the left and this administration has only worsened this misallocation of resources in their dangerous efforts to force the American people to abandon the forms of energy and transportation that allows for our prosperity and security. This effort has now moved into a dangerous direction toward the procurement of electric tactical vehicles without regard to the numerous drawbacks of EVs compared to the internal combustion engine vehicles that have been perfected over 100 years. What happens when the batteries die on the battlefield and our soldiers, sailors, and Marines are stuck for hours while the battery's waiting to charge in a sandstorm? How does prioritizing the green energy cult over the safety and lethality of our warfighters promote our national security? More concerningly, the component minerals necessary for these technologies are almost entirely controlled by our enemies in Beijing. That's great. The supply chain for our military comes from China, giving our literal enemies complete control over our military supply chains and the ability to disrupt the defense of our nation. I urge support of this amendment, and I reserve the ballots.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized. For what purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
I seek to claim the time, please.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Prohibit funds for electric vehicles, electric chargers, photovoltaic technology. Over the past 4 years, every Army, every Marine Corps uniformed officer that testified before our Tactical Air and Land Forces Subcommittee has been crystal clear. Electrification of combat and tactical vehicles has tremendous operating promise and value. That's what they tell us, the experts. This capability is needed sooner rather than later. In every meeting I've had with military leaders on electrification, that they talk about the electrical vehicle operational value, that this is a proven tactical capability that will make our ground forces more mobile, more lethal, and survivable. This is about fighting and winning. This is not a climate issue. This is about giving our war fighters the best equipment. You walk down the street, you hear those electric cars. No, you don't. That's exactly why they want this. It's because they're quiet. They don't put out the heat signature of combustion engines. This isn't made up accidentally. This is the testimony from military leaders over the last 4 years, starting with the Trump administration and now continuing with the Biden administration. This is important. Our military leaders say they support the electrification. It's not for climate change. It's about operational value for our warfighters. It is insane that we want to take away from our warfighters a vehicle that can be safe, to sneak up on somebody, not to say, hey, I'm here, folks. And by the way, they charge. That's great. But you know what happens to vehicles? They also run out of gas. The very first prisoner of war during the Iraqi invasion was from a fuel truck who made a wrong turn. We understand those challenges, but this is about giving our warfighters what they need, the operational need, the equipment. Not to mention, by pulling down photovoltaic, we're shutting down any satellite in the future. Because you know what? They don't have extension cords to space. They need solar panels, and you're trying to shut it down. Unbelievable. And I urge so strongly the opposition to this amendment. And I yield back. All right, excuse me. I reserve.
The gentleman reserved. Members are reminded to make their remarks to the chair. The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As someone who did serve and did use the vehicles for over 3 decades, rose from the bottom to the general ranks. So I would say at some level, when you're a GO, you're in top leadership. Not one person in those over 3.5 decades ever told me, not one, we're not going to be able to win this fight without an electric tactical vehicle. Not one. As for the first prisoner in Iraq who made a wrong turn driving a fuel truck, it wasn't because they ran out of fuel, it's because they made a wrong turn. I know where the wrong turn was made because I served in Diwania. It has nothing to do with the issue at hand. The issue at hand is that we shouldn't be spending our R&D money from the military on things that can be bought off the shelf once they're proven. And if the military does want to buy this stuff, let the contractors prove it to them so that the taxpayers don't have to pay for all the failures along the way, and even more important, so the service members in contact don't have to pay with their lives for the failures along the way. I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
I'd just like to remind everybody we used to ride horses in the battle. Doesn't make them wrong, but I don't think they work too well today. There's certainly plenty. At this time, I yield 30 seconds to the chairman of the committee, Mr. Rogers.
The gentleman is recognized for 30 seconds.
I thank my friend from New Jersey. This amendment would prohibit the Department of Defense from spending any research development funding on solar cells and other technologies on Earth or in orbit. As most people who know me know, I spent a lot of time on national security space. 100% of our U.S. satellites, both government and commercial, rely on secure communications, missile warning, and global positioning are powered by solar cells. Ending research and development on cutting-edge solar technology does not advance national defense. In fact, it would limit our ability to confront China in space as they seek to challenge our superiority. I agree the DoD shouldn't waste time on fake green initiatives, but advancing key space capabilities with these technologies makes our military more lethal. I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment. I yield back.
Gentleman from New Jersey.
Thank you.
Reserves.
I do.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Well, I appreciate the chairman's remark, and I certainly live better because satellites exist in space. Unfortunately, I have to live with the fact that the satellites in space are powered by Chinese-made solar panels. When the chairman can tell me that the solar panels are all going to be made in America without slave labor from Congo or from East Turkestan, then maybe this wouldn't be germane. But I don't think we should be dependent on our enemy for our power or our satellites. And with that, I reserve.
Reserves. Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Just wanted to remind everybody that we do not allow Chinese-made on our satellite, and that facts do count. At this point, I would like to yield a minute and a half to the ranking member of the committee, Mr. Smith.
The gentleman is recognized for a minute and a half.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really want just to associate myself with Chairman Rogers' remarks. These technologies are crucially important to developing the capabilities that we need to be able to compete with China, deter our adversaries, and have a strong military. And I understand that there are controversial decisions that are made. What is the right technology going forward? We will never be perfect about this. We've gone through this in DoD in many instances. Gosh, we've spent a lot of money on the F-35 that didn't quite work out, spent a lot of money on a lot of different programs that didn't work out perfectly. Targeting electric, solar, new green energy, I realize is being done because of the politics around it, but I would hope that we could put aside those political debates on that to recognize the crucial need that we have for these technologies in the military. If the gentleman's amendment passes, I guess we'd have to take down the satellites. I mean, how's this going to work exactly? This is a really, really bad idea, and I hope we will vote no. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from New Jersey reserves.
Yes.
And the gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
I urge adoption of the amendment, and I yield the balance.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you. Just want to remind everybody, this is an operational need that came from the experts, those who testified before our committee over the last 4 years that they want this, they need this, and they understand it's a proven technology to give our warfighters that tactical need that they need. And I strongly urge the opposition to this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania. Those in favor say